Let's go through BIOS settings which need to be configured before starting the ESXi server installation. Please keep in mind that we will be installing the ESXi server on consumer-grade hardware, which is not officially supported from VMware. But, since there are many similarities in hardware design and components used, ESXi server can be installed and used for testing purposes, but of course without any support from VMware. I will be doing this on my own and with information available for free on the web and from the community. If successful, I will turn my old PC into an ESXi server and give it a good use for virtualization and supported component testing. Hardware I will be using for this installation is AMD's Ryzen 3400G CPU, Gigabyte's B450i Aorus Pro Wi-Fi motherboard, 16 GB of G.Skill Aegis memory, 1 Intel PCI Express network adapter, 1 Samsung 2.5-inch SSD drive, 1 Western Digital 2.5-inch HDD drive, and finally 1 Samsung NVMe drive. Also, in this video, I will not be performing any overclocking of components, since stability over time is crucial and performance gained through overclocking the CPU will not be visible within the virtual machines which will be running on this ESXi server, at least in some meaningful way. Basically, components will mostly be configured with auto options with the exception of memory, which will be configured through XMP but aligned with the official supported speed for my CPU, and that speed would be 2933 MHz. Let's start with the options related to CPU and memory. Here you can see that mostly settings are left at auto except the XMP profile settings which I'm using, and I have manually limited the speed to my supported speed for the CPU. Important thing here is to enable SVM mode, as you can see here. Also, to help with virtualization, you need to enable the I/O MMU. In this ESXi server, I have added only one Intel PCI Express network adapter with 2 Intel network cards on it. I will be using it along with my onboard Intel network adapter, so in total I will be having 3 Intel network adapters in my PC. Also, since I will not be using any storage RAID configurations, I have no need for dedicated hardware RAID controllers. Usually those hardware RAID controllers are needed because software RAID controllers that are being used by the motherboard are not supported and are not working with the VMware's ESXi server. As you can see here, I'm using the SATA mode set to AHCI. Also, you can see both of my drives below. On this page, you can also see that I'm using my CPU's Vega graphics, and I will be using that for ESXi server installation and configuration. Since that doesn't require a lot of GPU power, I will be limiting the amount of pre-dedicated memory to 256 MB for the GPU within the available RAM. Those settings you can see here. After all those settings are complete, we can now save the BIOS settings and start to boot the installer. To continue with the installer, we will now press enter. Here we will accept the EULA. We will wait for a few moments so that our hardware can be detected. As I mentioned previously, I will be using an NVMe drive for my ESXi server installation. Since I did the installation previously as a test, the installer has now detected the previous installation and is offering the following options: to upgrade and preserve the VMFS store, to install the ESXi and to preserve the VMFS data store, or to install the ESXi from clean, or to override the VMFS data store. We will be using the last option. I will select a keyboard layout for my region. Now enter a password for your VMware ESXi. And press F11 to continue with the installation. Here we can wait a minute or two for the installation to complete, and we will be presented with the option to reboot the system. Basically, those are the final stages of installation. Okay, I will be selecting the option to remove the installation media before rebooting, and I will press enter. Now we will be able to see the startup of our newly installed ESXi server. Let's wait a few moments for the startup to complete. Okay, now we are presented with the details we need to use to connect to our ESXi server through a web browser. All the configuration of the ESXi server is done through the web browser interface. As you could see, during the startup of our ESXi server, some drivers failed to load. As I mentioned previously, since we are doing the installation on a consumer-grade hardware, it is to be expected. Not all the components on my motherboard are included in the ESXi server's installation